Mr. Carroll. I think as we all just witnessed here, is we've got 4 Inspector Generals, great integrity, and just really appreciate your thoughtful testimony. Senator McCaskill, I did mention before you got here in my opening comments the work you've been doing with Senator Grassley on a bill to certainly codify some of the requests they had. And if you'd like to, give, if you want to do it right now, that's fine, or before your questions. I can do it before your questions. Okay. No, but I appreciate your efforts on that. There are a number of suggestions that have been made here, some recommendations and things that we need to, I think, legislatively provide so you can do your job. I do want to go first to Mr. Horowitz and probably Mr. Roth about acting IGs. I know in terms of the Veterans Administration, we've had an acting IG. We've had some real problems in the VA. Senator Baldwin and I have certainly witnessed what's happening in Wisconsin. I'm concerned about that. Senator McCaskill and I were involved in I guess, investigations regarding the acting IG and Department of Homeland Security, and we saw the problem there. The question I have for you, Mr. Horowitz, what is the problem in appointing permanent IGs? I mean, in terms of the VA, it was well known, I think it was back in November 2013, that the permanent IG was going to retire as of December. That position has been vacant now for basically 14 months. What is the hang-up in terms of identifying? Is it just a lack of available individuals? Is it a lack of will?
It's an excellent question, and I think one of the issues is simply making these positions priorities in terms of the nominating process, the vetting process, and then the confirmation process. Speaking, I think you have 3 actually of us are in agencies that have had this issue arise. My own agency, Glenn Fine, my predecessor, announced in 2010 that he was going to be leaving in January 2011. I was nominated in July of 2011 and confirmed in March of 2012. So even with sufficient notice, the process took a lengthy period of time. There are plenty of available candidates who are interested in becoming IGs. I know from 6 weeks now on the job as chair of the Council of IGs, we send resumes to the Presidential Personnel Office of interested candidates that we've looked at and vetted, and there has to be a commitment to move these nominations promptly.
How many vacancies are currently, how many vacancies are there, and how many people have been nominated for those positions?
If I recall correctly, both presidentially confirmed positions and designated federal entity positions, I believe the number is 11 vacancies, and there's 1 nominee for those 11 slots pending.
So I think that's a problem. I mean, we need, if there are plenty of people that are available for the position, we need to get those nominated, and certainly I think this committee will be dedicated to getting those, move those through the confirmation process as quickly as possible. Mr. Roth, you obviously got into a department in Office of Inspector General where there were some real morale problems, and we had an acting Inspector General. Senator McCaskill and I, in our investigation of that position, certainly saw the corrosive and the improper result of having an acting Inspector General that might be vying for the permanent Inspector General. Can you speak a little bit to what you found when you entered your office?
Well, certainly, unfortunately, or perhaps fortunately, you're in as good a position as anyone to understand the effect on the morale of the individuals there. Both because of the threat to the independence of the IG as well as the appearance of the threat to the independence IG. And really, it doesn't matter if you're independent or not independent. Once you have lost that perception of independence, you're pretty much done, because the only difference between, as I like to tell Secretary Johnson, the only difference between me and the rest of the 225,000 people in the Department of Homeland Security is that I am in fact independent, and I'm perceived to be that way. That is the value that we add, and once you lose that, you are simply cannot never be effective again.
In your testimony, you used I think, an important word. You said courage. Can you describe an instance of courage that was required by an Inspector General?
I think this happens all the time. I think you see that, for example, with Mr. Horowitz's situation with the FBI, where this is a situation in which two very powerful forces are at loggerheads. And the fact that you have a confirmed Inspector General who has all the protections of the HSGAC, that our salary is fixed, we don't get a bonus, they can't fire us, we can do any audit that we choose to do that we believe is necessary, is incredibly important to be able to really speak truth to power. And that is, in fact, part of our job.
What type of pressure do you come under, do Inspector Generals come under, that require courage to push back on?
Well, you have to admit we're not very popular sometimes because no one likes to be audited, right? We're in the bad news business. Oftentimes we go in and we expose programs that have significant waste or significant problems to it. And we do so with a certain rigor based on the training that our auditors receive to be able to do it in sort of a regimented, sort of logical way. And that is very unpleasant for the people being audited. And of course, there's going to be pushback with regard to that. And it's very important to be able to simply hold your guns with regard to that. I will say that I'm fairly fortunate because the Secretary in my department understands the value of the IG and is a fairly sophisticated individual when it comes to sort of my role versus his role. So I'm fortunate there, but I think other people may have some horror stories.
Thank you. I'll get to the other two. I want to go back to Mr. Horowitz because Mr. Roth just used a word I was going to use, pushback. In the case of the FBI, denying you access to information, is there legitimate pushback from them? I mean, is there a legitimate reason for their classification? And I'll be asking across the board, whether it's matching or some of these other areas that you need help on. What are the legitimate reasons why there are some department personnel that do push back? And specifically talk about the FBI.
In the access area, we got access to information up to 2010 in all of these categories. No law changed in 2010. No policy changed. The statute, the HSGAC stayed the same, the grand jury statutes, everything stayed the same. It was simply a decision by the General Counsel's office in 2010 that they viewed now the law differently. And as a result, they weren't going to give us that information. In the national security letter reviews that we did, we've done a lot of national security reviews of the FBI's use of the authorities Congress has given to them. In the middle of our third review of the national security letter matter, which we released last year, information we got at the start of the review prior to 2010 was no longer given to us after the change in legal position, credit information. It made no sense. And it's, frankly, from my standpoint, inexplicable. Other than a new lawyer making a new decision about a law that hadn't changed. And it shouldn't be allowed to stand, and frankly, we can't, there's nothing more I can do at this point, frankly, other than having testified about 7 times now and sending the letters pursuant to the Appropriation Act to the appropriators and to you and the other committees that oversee us, and try and get some action. That's really, our power comes from speaking out publicly and hoping that there's follow-up and action as a result.
Well, hopefully the 7 times the charm. Yes. With that, Senator Carper.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Again, I thank you.
Thanks, Senator Booker. Let me just respond a little bit. I think, as I've been trying to do this committee, is concentrate on shared purposes, shared goals. Again, that mission of enhancing the economic and national security of America, that's something we share. I think we all agree that we should absolutely fund the authorized, the legal, the essential elements of Department of Homeland Security. I think we all want to do that. If we concentrate in that area of agreement, there's certainly an aspect of this funding issue that we don't agree on. Let's set that off to the side. It's in the courts now. This could be solved tomorrow if President Obama, if Secretary Jay Johnson said, okay, let's let the courts decide this. Let's fund those essential, the legal, the constitutional, the authorized activity, DHS. You wouldn't be in this bind, Mr. Roth. So again, I hope that we can do that. It would have been very helpful if we would have at least voted to get on the bill so we could start offering amendments, so we could open up the process, so we could have the debate, the discussion, set up a process where we could find some measure of common ground, some kind of compromise. That hasn't happened. That's regrettable. I hope we can do that in the future. Senator Ayotte.